From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says the U.S. sanctions targeting Venezuela's oil company are illegal. He says Russia will take all necessary steps to support Nicolás Maduro's government.
What the United States and their closest allies are doing with regards to Venezuela is, of course, very worrying, crudely violating all norms of international law, and essentially taking a direct course at ousting legal authority in this Latin American nation. Additional information came in today about sanctions applied against Venezuelan oil company, PDVSA, against its North American branch, Citgo. Meanwhile, underlining the cynicism of what is happening, American companies working in Venezuela are exempt from the sanctions, so they want to change the regime and also make a profit from it.
On Monday, Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro met with diplomatic personnel returning from the United States. During the meeting, President Maduro said that his message to the U.S. has always been of dialogue and non-interference, but that Washington's response has always been aggression. He also made it clear that Venezuela will never allow foreign intervention from anyone.
Many things have happened since the moment Donald Trump took office in the White House in January 2017, but we have always sent them the same message, asking for dialogue, respect, understanding, non-interference, just this one message. And I can say that the response has always been the same, degrading and aggressive.
Maduro also spoke about the latest round of sanctions imposed by the U.S., this time against the state-owned oil company PDVSA.
At PDVSA, we're already working on taking actions. For PDVSA, state oil company, we decided that we will take every legal, political, technical, commercial actions possible to defend Venezuela's interest in the United States. And in our homeland, we will give the necessary simultaneous and convincing response to defend Venezuela's interest.
The sanctions were announced by the U.S. Treasury Secretary during a White House press conference in a bid to mount additional pressure on Maduro's government.
Today, Treasury took action against Venezuela's state-owned oil company, PDVSA, to help prevent the further diversion of Venezuela's assets by former President Maduro. The United States is holding accountable those responsible for Venezuela's tragic decline. We will continue to use all of our diplomatic and economic tools to support interim President Guaido, the National Assembly, and the Venezuelan people's efforts to restore their democracy.
Venezuela's Foreign Affairs Minister Jorge Arreaza said they are moving ahead with plans to set up a Bureau of Mutual Interests to replace the U.S. Embassy in Caracas. In a press conference, Arreaza said their hope is to open a common channel of dialogue. It was last Wednesday that President Maduro ordered U.S. diplomats in the country to leave within 72 hours.
President Nicolás Maduro respects the letter of the United Nations, diplomatic conventions, and the Venezuela Constitution, and Venezuela will continue to seek dialogue as long as we are respected. If they're not going to respect us, and the virtual game board is going to be imposed on the real one, well, the 7 diplomats will have to leave, including who was in charge of business, Mr. Story. Now he is the agent of the United States here. They will have to withdraw from Venezuela. They will have to leave, and the break will be total, and we will not be able to establish an U.S. interest office.
Leaders of the Caribbean community, CARICOM, have met at the United Nations to discuss the ongoing political situation in Venezuela. The Prime Ministers of St. Kitts and Nevis, Trinidad and Tobago, and Barbados held talks with the UN Secretary General. Coming out of that meeting, the delegation said that if the conditions can be met, the UN will assist in establishing the roadmap towards peace and security for Venezuela and the region.
We are very satisfied that in the coming days we could work towards that dialogue so that the internal difficulties of Venezuela can be approached without intervention and without interference from those who may have a different approach, and hopefully in the not too
In the UK, a protest was held outside Downing Street, Theresa May's residence, denouncing the government's support for the ongoing US-led attempt coup in Venezuela. The protesters displayed Venezuelan flags and placards in support of the Bolivarian Revolution. Demonstrators said it's important to highlight the outrageous policy of the UK government, which recognized the head of Venezuela's National Assembly as interim president.
The UK has no business in interfering into the internal affairs of the Venezuelan people. And secondly, most importantly, the UK government is withholding 14 tons of gold, 1.2 billion US dollars worth of Venezuelan gold, which is in the vaults of the Bank of England, and is refusing to hand this money over to the Venezuelan government, which is its rightful owner. If they are so worried about the economic suffering of the Venezuelan people and the humanitarian situation that the Venezuelan people are facing, they should immediately hand back this money, which can surely be used to alleviate the situation. We are here to protest against the imperialist intervention of the UK and the US in the Venezuelan affairs.
What we're being told about Venezuela when you watch the news, when you watch the BBC, Channel 4, is a pack of lies. Venezuela is being sanctioned to death by the USA, by the EU, by Canada, and now they have arbitrarily decided that this one person that no one's ever heard of before, that was not elected, is going to be the president of Venezuela, when the truth is there was already elections last year and the people chose Nicolas Maduro.
In other news, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel held a meeting with the Council of Ministers late Monday to evaluate the recovery efforts following a devastating tornado that hit Havana and surrounding areas. Díaz-Canel stressed the importance of learning from the experiences of these weather events in order to improve disaster prevention. 4 people died as a result of Sunday's tornado, and a total of 195 more were injured. Partially flattened houses, fallen trees and power lines, and overturned vehicles could be seen throughout affected areas.
The experience was horrible. Once you watch the tornado from far away, lived in the trees, it's very painful to see from a distance, but to live it is frightening.
When I got to my house was closed off, and I saw the TV on the floor, along with a pile of furniture. The refrigerator was in the patio with all the food and everything outside. Even power lines were hanging down nearby. It's the most destruction that I ever seen in my life.
And Cuba marked the 166th anniversary of the birth of national hero José Martí, one day later due to the tornado. In an event led by former President Raúl Castro and the President Miguel Díaz-Canel, they also showed solidarity to the Bolivarian Revolution. The tradition of the torch-lit march was started 66 years ago by revolutionary leader Fidel Castro. He was protesting against Fulgencio Batista's dictatorship that was backed by the US.
We feel admiration towards Martí and remember him a lot, wishing to be like him and follow his ideas.
It's an honor to participate in this march to commemorate the anniversary of the birth of our national hero.
Thanks to José Martí, we have this reality today. It's also the youth organization. It's everything.
We have more stories coming up. We'll be back.
We are present at every event where our nations are staring. We believe in a new global vision, united in every broadcasting. We keep expanding our horizons and working on a closer and better communication. Now, in Grenada, Telesur, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. El Salvador is electing its new president on Sunday as candidates close their campaigns during the weekend. Nayib Bukele from the Ghana party is heading all the polls.
Thousands of supporters of the FMLN party gather in one of the main avenues of capital San Salvador to show their support for the presidential candidacy of Hugo Martinez and Karina Sosa.
I think that in 10 years they have done more for the country than the Arena Party in 20. I believe they are the ones that are going to help our country.
At the rally, Martinez highlighted the social measures in his government program aimed at helping the poorest sector of the nation. He asked voters to choose the FMLN for a third term in office.
Justice means that all of our children can attend to school with their school supplies. That's what makes other candidates mad. Instead of offering justice, they are just offering fairy tales.
Candidate Nayib Bukele from the Ghana party closed his presidential campaign in the historic center. He has promised his supporters he will end with same policies affecting the country.
We are tired of the same policies. It is always the same. He is the one who is going to make a difference.
Bukele is heading the polls. The candidate says he will win the election in the first round.
On the 3rd of February, we will leave the post-war period behind. That day, we are leaving behind the ones who do not want to move on, the ones who live in the past, the ones who are rich because we are poor. That day, they will hear the Salvadorians saying, "No more."
The right-wing party Arena canceled its traditional closing campaign at the Cuscatlán Stadium, but held a caravan called Success Tour. The presidential election will be held this Sunday, February 3rd.
And people gather outside of the offices of the Brazilian mining company Vale on Monday to protest the death of at least 65 people in a dam collapse. Anger victims, families, activists and politicians threw liquid representing toxic waters left by the company towards the building. They also held signs reading, "It was not an accident, it was a crime." 300 people remain missing, and authorities say it is unlikely that any of them will be found alive. Brazil's top prosecutors said the company should be held responsible and criminally prosecuted.
It's necessary to take a stance against this destruction of the environment, of human lives, and of the recognition of human rights.
And amongst those most affected by the dam collapse will be the local Pataxo indigenous community who live downstream from the disaster.
We've lost the equilibrium of our reserve because the river was everything. We bathed in it, we washed our clothes, our dishes. So we're really upset with the situation and this tragedy that the white man has created and the damage done to our nature.
You think some mining company is worried about this? Some mayor from this area is worried? They're not. They don't know what this is. They only have love for money, for ore.
For the latest on this, we have our correspondent, Brian Meir.
As search and rescue efforts continue in Brumadinho, Minas Gerais, the MAM social movement, which fights for sovereignty and autonomy over the Brazilian mining industry, is attributing this massive environmental crime to the federal government's relaxation of regulations last year, enabling mining companies to expand their activities. And as a result, it seems that this is not the only place where mining capacities have been overloaded, because on the 27th, the civil defense team evacuated an additional 24,000 people from areas adjacent to the disaster zone, saying that there's a second dam in the area, also owned by Vale Mining Corporation, which is also at risk of bursting. And subsequently, they give out some contradictory information, and the local residents are very worried and confused at the moment about how big this risk actually is. Meanwhile, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro took the opportunity of this disaster to reach out to Benjamin Netanyahu and invite the Israeli military into the disaster zone. So on January 28th, 136 Israeli soldiers arrived in the area with a lot of modern surveillance equipment for locating cell phones. And this move has been criticized by a lot of people in Brazil, because first of all, it seems like an expansion of Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu's reaching out to far-right governments around the world. It's not clear why the Israeli military is needed when there's 300,000 Brazilian military, many of whom have even more experience working in mudslide and building collapse situations, in part because of their work in Haiti after the 2010 earthquake.
Also correspondent Brian Muir from Brazil. Now we go to Ecuador. The president, Lenin Moreno, has intensified security measures against Venezuelans, despite recent protests against xenophobia. Our correspondent in Quito, Denise Herrera, explains.
René left Venezuela last year to go to Colombia, where he faced xenophobia. After facing several incidents of xenophobia, he decided to move to Ecuador, along with a group of 12 people in a hub to find new opportunity. However, xenophobia found him again in Ecuador.
With all that happened, everything changed. There's no one here. 4 buses left to the frontier with Rumichaca. Everybody left because of xenophobia. Many people suffered attacks. Their clothes were burned. They were left with nothing.
Recently, a brutal femicide took place in the city of Ibarra, north of the country in Imbabura province. The perpetrator was a Venezuelan. In response, Ecuadorian President Lenin Moreno implemented new security measures against Venezuelan migrants. His decision has been criticized by a number of feminist organizations, Venezuelans living in Ecuador, and Ecuadorians who say the measures have contributed to xenophobia.
I got trapped in the middle of the confrontation. I need to leave this country with my daughter. I don't feel safe here. I'm not happy. I can't sleep. But there is nothing I can do except for saying thank you and move on.
Meanwhile, the message of campaigns against xenophobia and violence against women is still one of peace. The corner where Diana, the victim of femicide, was killed is now decorated with flowers and banners in honor of her memory.
The
nationality of a criminal doesn't matter. We are not responsible for the action of the murderer. There are criminals from Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador. That is not the point. What happened in Ibarra was really sad. Families with kids were attacked, and there are good and bad people everywhere.
The government of Ecuador has confirmed that the new security measures are in progress. Despite the backlash, Venezuelans are also leaving Otavalo, another city of Imbabura province where xenophobia and discrimination has been reported.
This is something new for us. I wanted to go to Peru, but it was hard to get further from Venezuela, so I decided to stay in Otavalo and keep fighting for my future.
One of the solutions the Bolivarian government of Venezuela has offered in response to xenophobia against Venezuelans abroad is the Return to Homeland Plan. The plan assists suffering Venezuelans to return to their home with the help of the Venezuelan government. From Ecuador, more than 2,000 citizens have been repatriated under the plan. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Ecuador.
We're taking one last break, but stay with us.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. And we continue with tributes towards Cuban hero Jose Marti, now in Africa. The Al Horeya Park in the heart of Egypt is a homage to the Latin American leaders who fought for independence, and representatives from different Arab organizations paid their tribute to Marti.
In Arabic, Al Horeya means freedom. It pays tribute to the ideals of emancipation held by Latin American leaders. From Mexican independence leader Miguel Hidalgo to the leader of the Bolivarian Revolution, Hugo Chavez.
This park is very important because it reflects the close relationship between Latin American countries and Egypt. And not only with Latin America, we also have statues of people from other parts of the world, like Afghanistan, Russia, as well as others.
Diplomats, representatives from different Arab organizations, and Egyptian figureheads paid a special tribute to the Cuban intellectual and journalist Jose Marti, who promoted the idea of Latin American unity.
He is a universal icon. He was in exile for many years in different countries and served as a consul in different Latin American countries. In 1881, when he realized France and the US wanted to take the Suez Canal, he wrote a diary entry about colonial oppression and how it wanted to make a profit from a poor country, as Egypt was at the time.
From Egypt's heart, the Latin American corridor reflects the relationship that Latin America has had with Africa and the Middle East.
It is evidence of the friendship between Egypt and the countries of Latin America, and having our independence leaders in a specific location, in a place far away from Latin America, but sentimentally very close, is for us a very important contribution to the relationship between Egypt and Latin America.
The participants agree on the need to recover the idea of unity proposed by these independence leaders, especially in these difficult moments for Latin America and the Caribbean region.
A new parliament in the Democratic Republic of Congo has been inaugurated. It held its opening session on Monday after a bitterly fought election that ushered in a new opposition president, Felix Tshisekedi. However, the National Assembly is still dominated by supporters of the former leader Joseph Kabila, who ruled the country since 2001.
If the effects of this change stop at the fact that the old president has left and the new one has come, or will its effects will extend beyond that? I am one of those who think its effects will extend beyond that.
In South Africa, the former chief of a contracting company says that former President Jacob Zuma received monthly bribes. The allegation was made on Monday as the former chief testified in the ongoing probe into corruption under Zuma's government. It's alleged that Zuma received bribes each month from Bosasa, the contracting company, in exchange for favors. Zuma was forced to resign last year under a cloud of corruption scandals.
Chair, he told me exactly what happened. We had a relationship where he'd tell me absolutely everything.
Yes, what did he say about these 300,000 rand?
He said he personally delivered it to Jacob Zuma, put the bag next to him, and said, and asked him the question, does Dudu give you your money every month? And the answer was yes.
2 white South African farmers have been found guilty of murdering a 16-year-old black teenager in Colony. On Monday, a judge convicted the 2 men of killing Matlomola Mosweu last year. The men claimed they caught the boy taking a plant from a farm in the area. They will be sentenced on Thursday. Cameroon's main opposition leader, Maurice Kamto, has reportedly been arrested. Even though the government has yet to comment on the development, it is largely believed the arrest is linked to his participation in anti-government protests over the weekend. According to his lawyer, Kamto has been taken to an unknown destination. 5 men accused of carrying out Al-Shabaab's deadliest attack in Kenya are in court in Nairobi. 148 people were killed in April 2015 when heavily armed attackers stormed Garissa University and began firing indiscriminately. On Tuesday, the court is expected to decide whether to prosecute the 5 suspects. Syria's government has signed a long-term economic cooperation deal with Iran. The country's prime minister announced this at a media conference with the visiting Iranian vice president. The agreement covers the industrial, agricultural, service, infrastructure, and energy sectors, among others.
Syria is very serious in offering many facilities for investment and reconstruction in Syria to friends in private and public Iranian companies.
And with that, we come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And we're on social media as well, so go ahead and follow us. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.